We have the unboxed JD TD-1. I called it a JD-1 earlier, and it's actually TD-1 for the American market. And we're going to take a little bit closer look at it, but first impressions are you can see it's more substantial than the JP1, a larger chassis. I do like the default double disc opener that you see down here at the bottom. With the JP1, that's an optional upgrade and add-on. I think it's well worth the extra money. We use that on our JP3 and our JP1 as well. The TD1 comes with plates. You can see right here I have several different sizes for different seed, and they actually mount in the bottom of the hopper that you see right there. We're going to take that hopper apart, and I'll show you a little bit closer what it looks like and how the unit works. So let's take this hopper off and dig a little deeper into the unit. To remove the hopper, there are two clips on the back of the hopper. You unhook, and then you can see there's a little knob there at the front of the hopper that secures it to the base. There we have the hopper removed from the unit. You can see the bottom of the hopper. We'll take a little bit a closer look at that. It has this flap here to keep seed from coming out of that when you mount it. I'm not sure how effective that would be, though. I think you would likely have to hold your hand there when you're reattaching the hopper to the base. Here we have a brush that keeps the seed isolated on the plate. A pretty impressive construction. And this little fork here actually guides the seed over top of the plate and on top of or over the hole or the slot. You can see the seed plate here is mounted with this little nut. We'll take this off here. So here you can see that the seed actually flows out of the bottom of the plate and down this little tube. Actually, it's not so little. And from the back of the hopper base, it flows down the tube to the opener, right behind the opener. It drops between in the dug furrow. This part of the seed plate will be facing down. And you'll also see on the underside, the distributor has scribed an arrow in the direction that the seed plate should move. There's a corresponding arrow, although you probably can't see it in this video, on the base of the hopper. I'm going to point it out, so for those of you who do have a TD1, you can look for it. It's right here in the back right corner. We're going to place the seed plate in the bottom of the hopper, or in the hopper base, I should say. It's a little spring washer here. It goes on top, that's important. And we're going to put on this nut. Well, I'm going to use two hands here. I'll catch you in a few moments. So here we have the A2 seed plate that I'm using for sweet corn mounted inside the bottom, the hopper base. And it's important when you're adjusting this out in the field that you make sure that the clearance here is very minimal between the brush and the plate. For obvious reasons, you don't want the seed passing past that. And another thing to adjust is this little fork right here. It's actually a seed guide, and it's going to help guide your seed in a line right over top of that slot. You can see it right there. And it will move laterally left and right here. And I think the objective would be to use this fork or center this fork over that slot. So we're going to mount the hopper and throw in some seed and see how it works. Here we have a JD TD-1 precariously placed on this makeshift stand here, so I can show you how this seeder singulates large seed. In the hopper right now we have sweet corn, and momentarily I'm going to walk you through the JD TD-1. It's very similar to the JP-1. If you're interested in purchasing a TD-1, please consider woodwardcrossings.com. They're the ones that provide you with material like this, educational and specifications about the equipment, particularly the Jang seeders. They've pioneered the Jang product, been a vendor for, I believe this is their 3rd year. So if you're thinking about purchasing a Jang TD-1 or a Jang JP-1 or any other Jang product, please contact woodwardcrossings.com. So we're going to walk through the steps here and kind of do a little bit of a field test, if you can call it that. The front wheel here drives a chain, and the chain transfers energy to a back axle, an intermediate drive axle, and this axle actually transfers energy to the 2 gears here and moves energy laterally to vertically. That drives a shaft that comes up through the bottom of this base. And you can see right here, hopefully you can see in the video, right here is the plate. I had matched a plate to the sweet corn seed that I had. Now, while I'm holding the video here, I'm going to turn with my other hand the front wheel, and we're going to actually watch what happens here. Hopefully it shows up so you can just see a seed come through underneath, clearing that brush and falling into that slot, and almost immediately, sometimes prematurely, falling through the slot and down through the bottom tube to the furrow. So let me see if I can't catch one of these seeds right as it's coming underneath the brush. Sometimes they get wedged. The ideal is to have it actually fall into that slot before it comes past the brush. But occasionally you'll get a seed that gets wedged in the slot, and the brush actually is pulled backwards, and it will show you often how. There we go. You can see some seeds in the slot still. This is a case where 2 seeds will be dropped in this at this particular moment. In fact, there's another example of sometimes what happens, and this model isn't the only culprit. It also happens in the JP-1. You can see here I have 2 seeds wedged in a slot. Now this is an important problem to recognize and to resolve quickly. When you have seeds that are wedged in slots and you're doing, potentially several thousand feet, this is going to happen, and potentially you could have slots, 3, 4, 5 slots that all contain wedged seed. Now the JP-1, particularly the X roller, the XY used for seeding carrots and lettuce, also has a tendency to do this. So what I like to do to prevent this, or a mitigation technique, is to inspect it, certainly. If you see that you have several, stop in the field, lift the front wheel off the ground, kneel down and check to see what your slots look like, if they're clean. And if they're not, clean them before you proceed, particularly if you're not overseeding. You want to take advantage of all the space, and one of the nice things about this tool is that it does singulate seed reasonably well. So be sure to clean your slots. Now I'm going to continue here for a few more seconds. Hopefully you can see those 2 wedged corn pieces continue past that. They're going to stay in there likely until the next iteration, and potentially longer. There we go. So there, hopefully you can see it on the camera, is a seed that's slightly wedged on the corner of that slot, but it will drop. Now, one thing is the characteristics or the behavior I've noticed about these units are different on the bench than they are in the field. In the field, you're moving at a rate, and this machine was intended and designed to operate at that rate. The more you seed with these units, whether it be the TD-1 or the JP-1, you'll get a feel for the appropriate speed, and I think one of the most ideal thing is to minimize fluctuation of that speed as you're pushing the seater on your seat bed. I think that pretty much wraps it up. My overall opinions of this unit is it has a price point of $625. I think that, at least now, I reserve the right to comment on it fully, but I'm fairly satisfied with its ability to singulate sweet corn, which is primarily what we'll be using it for this year. Also doing some pumpkins, and that would be probably the next test I'd like to do here. But getting back, the build quality is acceptable, although I would have liked to have seen some things done differently, particularly this outside shelter or drive case, if you will. It's plastic, and this is the first Jag I've seen in 3 years that has that plastic case, and I'm not fond of that at all. You throw this thing in the back of your pickup truck, and right behind that you throw, or right after that you throw in a rake, and the handle hits the outside of that. I'm going to bet that it's going to break, and I think that's unfortunate, especially at this price point. Another thing that I'm not tremendously wowed about, and I think that some re-engineering could fix, is the bottom of this bin. There's a little tab, and that's what actually holds the front of this hopper to the base. You can see right there. This little plastic area beneath that tab, as well as this tab, I think will have a tendency to break over time, and especially with some rough use. I would have liked to have seen, at the very least, this bottom piece here cladded in a piece of steel. And for those of you who are concerned about that, that's certainly something that can be fabricated, but at a price point that the seater's at, that's something I should have, I think we should expect to see off the shelf.